welcome to part 4 of our AI workshop series. Today, we're going to be discussing AI-driven email marketing to boost tour bookings, which is actually one of my favorite ways to use AI, so I'm really excited. Emails actually are a really effective way to generate leads, nurture prospects, and it's so underutilized by so many companies. So excited to go over all of this with you guys. Like our other workshops, this session is being recorded and will be available on, I'll send you guys a link in a second, in a few hours. So just check that out if you need to watch the replay. If you're watching the replay right now, go ahead and check out episodes 1, 2, and 3 before diving into this session. Next week is our last training session, but I want to get you all excited because we are actually going to be going back to our regular monthly trainings, and I'll have more details, but we do have a workshop webinar confirmed for late April. So stay tuned. I'll let you know about it next week. All right, Brandon, we're all so excited to learn more about AI and email marketing. Go ahead and take it away.
Hey, thanks, Nikki. So really excited to jump into this today. I swear, like every time we go through one of these, it is like Christmas morning. You get these incredible prompts designed, and the results are just so fun to go through. We are going to, as Nikki mentioned, jump into part 4 right now. We're going to talk about email marketing to boost tour bookings. Again, to reiterate sort of where we've been and where we're going. We're talking about building a strategy around what is not going to change. That is the right message, the right person at the right time. We've been talking about the right person. We've built the foundation with all of our ideal customer profile. We've used reviews and all of the data that we had from those, plus Google Analytics data, and we've compiled that all together. And we have built this incredible foundation to ensure that we are talking to the right person. And we've been crafting messages along the way that are really dialed into that profile so that we have the right message on our website, in our blog content, and other areas that we've discussed. And today, we're going to still continue those two, but we're going to start to weave in the right time. And when we think about the right time with what we're doing here, I like to think of the customer journey. Those of you that have joined us in past sessions, we talk a lot about the customer journey. How we basically bring people from awareness all the way through the process of engaging with us, eventually booking, eventually adding to that booking, hopefully becoming an advocate, and ideally promoting our tours because they're so excited about them. So there are a lot of components to this, and we won't dive into all of them today, but the area that we're really going to be focused in today is kind of this. Well, we're actually going to be in a couple of spots. The first one we're going to talk about is in this area where someone comes to our site. Maybe they've seen an ad, they've seen a social post, they've, all of these ways that we try to drive traffic to our website. They've gotten there, they've begun to engage with us to the point where they subscribe to something. Maybe they haven't booked yet, but we have an email address, right? We don't ever want someone to leave our website without capturing something. Otherwise, it's just wasted time and money. So we know we can do remarketing and so forth to try to bring them back. But if we can capture some contact information, it takes everything to the next level. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be focused on that subscription and nurturing phase. And then we're going to be talking about others that have gone through the entire customer journey at least once with us, and we're focused on bringing them back again. Repeat business. So we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be doing it in the context of email marketing. So there are 3 different types of emails we're going to be talking about today. The first one is built around developing a lead magnet and follow-up sequence. We're talking about, again, that nurturing phase, driving people towards conversion. The second one is our newsletter emails. We're actually going to jump into 3 different frameworks that have been proven to produce results and effective emails. So we're going to experiment with a couple of those. And then we're going to talk about a third one, which I think is really powerful and often very overlooked, which is just our personalized outreach. We're doing it in a way that we can reach thousands of people at once, but segmenting our lists and developing a message for those segments that will really resonate. So let's go ahead and get into the process. So We've got a new document of prompts. Nikki, if you can go ahead and share that link out with everyone, you'll have the URL to this and you can jump into it. Um, Again, this whole document here, we're going to just work through it top to bottom. We won't do every prompt on it, but I put them here so you have the value of utilizing them on your own if you want. Um, but yeah, so let's jump into this first section. So I want to describe what we're doing here a little bit. When you have a visitor on your website, I'm just going to pop over into ours here. We'll expand this out a little bit. Obviously, they have landed on your site for some reason or another, and our hope is that we're driving them into our products, right? We've been talking about this, all of this messaging and everything that's doing that, right? We have lots of opportunities to get to that, but it doesn't always happen the first time. So we have something that we've placed, sometimes that we've experimented with this as a pop-up that comes in after a certain amount of time on the site. We've also experimented with it at the bottom of nearly every page of the site. And we've found both of those to be fairly effective. But in a nutshell, this is the example of what we're talking about. And in my research in going through this, I've actually changed what we're doing, and I'm going to give you a little preview of what we're about to launch with this. And I'm excited about it because as we've talked to tour companies in the past, sometimes they get a little bit overwhelmed by the idea of putting something like this together. They're like, yeah, it makes sense. I love this destination. I definitely know all the inside tips and everything, but putting together a full guide like this in a PDF or a mobile format or something, like it just seems daunting. And I totally get that. So I want to give you today something that you could actually develop during this workshop and have a lead magnet ready to go. So if you're curious what this is, I'll just show you real quickly. When you ask for this, we provide this document. And it goes everything from, we've got restaurant information in here, and we actually take it a step further and we suggest actual dishes or appetizers at the restaurants from what we know based on our knowledge of eating there lots of times. We have information about accommodations, camping, all of that kind of stuff, activities. So they kind of get this full summary in a nice format they can, print out, read through, digest any way they like. But taking this a step further, you can see in here, I've actually changed the wording on this. This is not live yet, so you won't find this anywhere, but I put in here, get exclusive access to our 10-part Moab Adventure Insider series. Now that's an email series, packed with expert tips, hidden gems, and adventure secrets, plus our free insider's guide. So we'll still give them this, but you could 100% do this without the kind of that daunting step of producing a big guide like this. So let me show you some of the pieces we put together to create this. Before I do that, let me just tell you some of the results we get from this, because you may be thinking, well, does that really produce anything? We get in a given year, we get about 10,000 people who request this. Those are 10,000 people that may have just left the website without us having anything, and all we can do is really remarket to them through ads and stuff. And so we now have an email address, which is incredibly valuable if we can use it properly. So we'll talk about that, and that's really where we're going to focus today. Of course, we're getting email addresses through bookings, which are valuable to us as well, and we're getting email addresses through people signing waivers. So they come to us through all of these different ways, right? But this specific one, we're talking about generating leads and lead nurturing. So what does this look like? Let's pop over to our prompts. And I'm in my project again over here. Again, we have all the project files that we've put together. I still have those in here. We haven't really added too much to those since the first time we built out that foundation. So we're just leaving that all intact. And we'll continue to use those as we go through this. So with this, we're going to take this prompt right here, And we're actually going to I'm going to come down. I'm not going to actually put these examples in yet because I've found that if you do, you might like these examples a lot, but if you do put them in there, it will likely give you exactly these 10 emails. Um, so try this first for your area without doing that, and just copy this section right here, just down to email ideas to include. And we'll come over here and we're going to paste this in. And it's Christmas morning. So let's see what we get here. Now you could dig into these, one at a time. I've actually found, because I don't want these emails to be like really extensive, like our blog posts, I'm not doing them one at a time. I'm actually generating the full series of 10 all at once. Your Moab adventure starts here. Let's plan something epic. So this is kind of an introduction, welcoming them to the series. And then I'm getting these emails. Number one mistake first timers make in Moab. Moab's top 3 must-do experiences. How to plan the perfect itinerary. When is the best time to visit? Packing list, what you actually need. How to get the best deals. Now, we don't do a lot of discounting on our stuff, so I'm probably not going to use that email. But some of these other ones are good ideas. Now, I may not. I also, these aren't really fully written. It looks like it's what it's giving me. So we'll take this to the next step here as it finishes out email number 10. I'm seeing it's kind of giving a, I don't know if you're getting something similar, but again, because we're not asking it to build one email at a time, we're getting very summarized information. Okay, so you can do one of two things at this point. Either take the examples and plug those in if you're liking them, or you can just wait for a moment. Well, I'm going to do that and just show you what I get. Or you can say, I really like what I got here, and we'll go to the refining step next. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and I'm just going to ask, would any of these email ideas be stronger than the ones we initially generated? Okay, and I'm going to paste this list right here. One thing I like about this, just in terms of, I've found as you're, creating prompts and so forth, having a numbered list does help, because you'll notice every time I paste one of these in, all of the formatting is stripped. I don't get a nicely formatted number list with bullets and everything, but having the numbers in there really helps it to understand where the breaks are. Like, this is number 1, all of this information underneath it is related to it. Number 2, and so forth. Okay, so now it's combined things from both. Okay, we'll let it wrap this up and then I'll show you. One thing that we can do as we think about refining this is providing additional information to it. So if you have some emails that you want to sort of mimic, like you've done some things like this before, actually providing a sample at this point could be a great way to say, okay, we've come up with ideas. Here's an example email that I wrote. I'd like to match the tone and style and length of this email in these other emails, if you've got something you really have in your mind, and it will do that. So that's a great way to do it. I also did something at one point where I took our insider's guide and I provided the contents of this to it and said, is there anything in this guide that we should consider using? Because it's a resource that I've already built and spent a lot of time with. So I don't necessarily want to just take everything it's giving me and figure, hey, it knows what all the insider tips are. And the other caveat to this whole thing is, those of you who are listening here are the true experts. I mean, you know your destination better than anyone. You know it better than ChatGPT. Um, while it can go out and make this process more efficient, I just want to stress these are ideas, right? Like what it just did is a massive time saver for us. And now we can go through that and utilize it to build from.
Hey,
And I'll
Brandon,
show
I
you.
have a question.
Yeah, Nikki.
It kind of goes along with that. Like as we're feeding ChatGPT more information, like we do see something on our, we have a download that we want to provide it, whether we're uploading a file or copying and pasting within a project, can we give it too much and confuse it? Or is there a limit of number of files we can give in within that project?
Yeah, you will see a warning pop up sometimes on your project files. I've been there. Like it will pop up and say, it will tell you that the AI engine may not be able to read all of the files due to the quantity of them or the length of them. And so if you see that pop up, consider what you might be able to remove from it because you can overdo it for sure. And that likely varies depending on the plan you're on, right? Like the context window, um, they're getting better all the time. But I also know you get more tokens with bigger plans, and that probably influences how much data you can have there. So lots of factors obviously playing into that. And these things are just getting better and better and better. I mean, Google had released some stuff that was pretty impressive with some of their new engines that they're putting together. So it will be fun to see how this all grows and develops. All right, we've got something that doesn't look like a whole lot to me like an email. So I'm gonna ask it something here. There is, I don't know if some of you have heard of Digital Marketer. I've been to some of their conferences. The founder, his name is Ryan Deiss. He's done a lot of email marketing workshops. There's a ton of content online, and I'm positive that ChatGPT knows kind of what his strategies are and what he teaches. So I'm going to actually ask it something. I know we've already done this with one other person. We did it with Eugene Schwartz, right? In our kind of at our copywriting um, instructions, but I'm going to actually say, how would Ryan Deiss improve these emails? There's a little plug for Ryan Deiss out there. And these are some of the things that he teaches in email marketing, which I think can apply here. And of course, we can adjust this as needed. But yeah, tripwires, um, Epiphany Bridge, FOMO, micro commitments. These are all things that he likes to include. So it's taking some of my emails and giving me some of the adjustments that it would make. The next thing I'm going to do, as it summarizes this, is ask it to incorporate some of these and write me just a clean set of emails. Let's incorporate these principles into the emails and write a clean set of 10 emails with effective subject lines. I'm going to tell it to leave out the icons. Again, it gets a little overzealous with that. I'm tired of removing them when I copy and paste. So it will do that for me. And let's see what we get. So again, we're just refining this. And I don't know if you're seeing similar things to what I'm getting here, if you're just completely different. It'd be so interesting to compare somebody doing, completely different tour, completely different ICP and so forth. I might even ask it, we need to move on to some of our other things here, but I might take this a step further when it finishes here and say, now, let's take one final step and pass through these one more time and compare them to our ideal customer profile. let's pay special attention to their hesitations and fears and concerns and ensure that they're incorporated into the emails, right? And then it will take another pass through, comparing that file and effectively go through and incorporate that. So you can see how we can just kind of keep layering and improving one step at a time. If I do too much at once, I don't think I get the same as effective as results, right? It's going to go through and just kind of give me sort of a half-baked, a little bit of the ICP, a little bit of, someone I'm trying to emulate, all of that kind of stuff. So I like kind of going through it one at a time. And sometimes you find that you do that once and the results you get back are like, oh, I kind of liked what happened before and what it just changed. I don't love this end result. So go back a step and utilize those. Okay, so let me show you. I did some of that. I would want these to be just a hair longer. Some of them are some really short emails here, and I might actually ask it to do that. But I don't want them to be too long either. So I'm just going to show you the end result of what I took from this. So here you can see kind of our updated lead magnet copy. That's what we looked at over here. And then I'm calling this email 0 because it's kind of a welcome, your VIP access to Moab's best kept adventure secrets. Over the next 10 days will be your personal adventure guides revealing Moab's best kept secrets from thrilling must-do activities, blah, 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 blah. And then we're kind of teasing out this idea of, what's next. And yeah, it did that. It used the word tomorrow, which is fine too. And then actually a couple of these are kind of similar to what it generated this time. So when I did this before, but you can see about the length that I've gone here. I'm thinking people are reading this on phones a lot. So I don't want it to be crazy long, but I want it to have value. We just put together a new video of the top 15 things to do. It's getting huge. We're having a huge success on YouTube with it. So I think that's, already proven in terms of value. I want to make sure each one of these is really valuable, right? Best time to visit Moab, what the guidebooks don't tell you, kind of talking about, the pros and cons of each season a little bit, the hidden side of Moab beyond the hiking trails. So many people go there for the national parks. I mean, people are searching Arches National Park more than they're searching for Moab, Utah, and I know that. So they're going there to hike and explore and so forth. They want to see that. And sometimes people just come with blinders on and they don't realize there's so many other things to do. They just go for the park. So we've, introduced them to the fact that you can actually take these multi-day overnight experiences where you're completely removed from the crowds. And I'm kind of taking an approach of like every other one being a little more tour focused. Then you see I jump back to like top 10 dinner spots you can't miss, nothing to do with tours, just value, every time. And this one is kind of interesting. I'll show you what I did here because this is kind of a fun process to go through. If you already know all the answers to this, what the best restaurants are and everything, that's great. You could plug them in. I actually did something here. If you have one of these versions that you can utilize to do deep research, I actually used the deep research function in ChatGPT to go out. It took about 15 minutes to go out and cross compare lots of different sources. I told it to act as a food critic. And then it asked me a few other questions. And it went out and gave me a full thing. It's looking at, Wanderlog, we're in the Rockies, Traveler, Marriott. I mean, it's comparing all kinds of different sources here to see what people are talking about in terms of like that restaurant is mentioned frequently across lots of sources. That dish is mentioned frequently, and it's pulling all of that together so I can kind of get this, these results that are truly based on data, which is really kind of cool. So I took this, and this is way too long for an email. I don't think people want to read quite that much. Could be a really cool blog post though, as we talked about that last week. And I could tease this out and tell them the first 3 and see the other 7 in our post, right? And get them back into the website, because that's really what I want these emails to do. I want to provide value and drive them back into the website. So it may not make sense to put all of them in the email like this, but what I did is I had it actually take that research and then craft a message that would work for an email. So another thing that you could potentially do, and you could do that with, I just did it with lodging recommendation as another experiment. You know, where are people going to stay? What are they going to eat? What are they going to do? Those three things people really need answers to when they're planning travel. So answer them, but do it in a way that's kind of creative and positions you as the true expert, which is why I like getting down to dishes and stuff like that. Something that they're maybe not going to find as easily just going to, you know, wherever they see their rankings for restaurants. So what do we do with these once we have them? We will actually take these and plug them into our system. So over here in RESMARK, we have a module called Cruise Control. So for those of you who are clients and haven't yet set this up, this is a reminder to do that, and I'm giving you some really easy ways to plug this in. You likely have all your other emails set up around, you know, bookings and reviews and follow-ups and all that. But there is a section there for lead nurturing. And you can go in and create a lead magnet like the Insider's Guide, which can then plug them into a series of automated messages. So I've started to plug these in as we transition to this new one. Again, these new messages aren't live yet, but you can see in essence what's happening here. I'm saying, okay, 15 minutes after they request, I want them to get their VIP access email, and then they'll get the next email on the next day, and the number one mistake travelers make, and so forth, and we'll go down. Now, this is different than what we've done in the past. So stay tuned to a future webinar when I tell you how this goes. But it's always good to test these things. And what I'm comparing it against is what we've done here for a long time, which is very conversational emails, very short, 1 or 2 sentences, you know, kind of a follow-up from our staff. We provide the resource like the Insider's Guide, and then we follow up, you know, with something that's just trying to start a conversation. And I think there's value to both. And we may intersperse some of these together, but I also think I could get the 10-day series out, and then we could start doing a couple of follow-ups that are automated from our team. And we make these very personal. Like, we try to make them feel conversational. They come from an individual. They don't come from the reservations team or something like that. They come from a named individual inside the company who's a real person, who's actually responsible for that inbox. So that really, I think, is the best way to do it. So if you have something like this in your booking platform, if you're not using RESMARK, then, you know, I think utilizing something like that is really cool because it ties into the booking process. So as soon as someone books, then, you know, all of these follow-ups that they've been receiving can shift into automated messages around you know, purchases, what happens after their initial purchase, before around the payment, before the start date, all of those kinds of things. So hopefully that helps for kind of understanding how all of this comes together.
Can
All
I
right.
add some quick,
Yeah.
Brandon?
Mhm.
So, I like how you kind of mentioned, I mean, even before, I know you're changing it a little bit, how you're doing the, you know, just a few sentences in an email, making it very personal. I think there's a importance of both kind of that simple text email where we're not adding the design and we're not adding those rich media files. And then there's also a purpose for, you know, where you're adding the banners and the photos and everything. So both are just as important. You don't have to have those rich media files to run emails even like this. So just keep that in mind that both emails are effective.
Yeah. And you can, I mean, it's a good point, Nikki, because what we're used to seeing when we think marketing emails is probably something that is a little more like, you know, this email where maybe you've got, you know, some graphics and things like that, which I think there is a place for, right? But it is not something I usually reply to because I don't know, it just doesn't feel like somebody reached out to me. I feel like I'm part of kind of a, you know, a marketing campaign or something. And so there is a difference to those messages and their purpose for sure. And as you mentioned, both are effective in different ways. So I'm not going to go through this next section. The next section is kind of a lead nurturing sequence that is maybe not the the 10 emails or 5 emails or whatever you decide to do. These are more around the conversationally driven, just providing some value. They're different ideas. You could take this next section and plug in a series, several emails that are follow-ups that have just educational content. You're educating them on the destination. You're providing value. Like, hey, Nikki, I thought you'd like to see, the best scenic overlooks and how far the drive is to each one of them, for your time here. I thought you might like to see, the restaurants or scenic drives or places to stay, all of that kind of stuff could be sort of educating them. Another one is social proof, like starting to help them understand why people choose you, getting that out there in front of them while you're still trying to create a conversation. Urgency and offer, if you do get into discounting or promotions or things like that, being able to provide something like that in the sequence. Overcoming objections is a huge one and very cool to use in the context of what we're doing here, because you got all the data there. You got all the hesitations and concerns and so forth. You can do we do one on our multi-day trips that's like our answers to our travelers' most frequently asked questions, and people love to open that email and read through that. And they're like, here it all is, so convenient, right in front of me. These are all the things I've wondered about. And you can get them there and find answers. So hopefully that helps as you think about lead nurturing, lead generation, gives you something you can plug in, automate, and really get some value out of it. And then I will say one last thing on it. Don't just set it and forget it. I've been guilty of that a lot, where we plug it in and it's like, hey, it's working. But there's so much to be said about looking back at that data, figuring out, what's happening with it. Can I optimize it? Can I improve it? Doing A/B testing, all of that kind of stuff, so that you end up with a result that's like sometimes dramatically different than what you could have been getting if you just had left it with your first try. So definitely do that. All right, let's talk newsletters. So here we're talking about kind of your traditional, these people you have their email address for one reason or another. They could be a guest, they could have been a lead, whatever. At this point, you've gone through some sequence that you might have, and you're just, whether it's every other week, every month, whatever your pattern is and your cadence, they're receiving these. And it's sometimes tough to come up with ideas, right? Like you're always kind of, okay, what's the next thing? I've sent so many of these. How do I come up with something that's valuable? So I'm hoping these little frameworks here can help with that. So let's go back to our project level. We're going to get out of that series, and we're going to go into this first one here. So there's 3 different frameworks we're going to look at. This one is called Value, Engage, and Promote. The next one is Story, Solution, Action. And the last one is a listicle and quick tips from our blog session. Remember, we did listicles. This will tie into that really nicely. But let's experiment with these a little bit and see what we get. So I'm going to go back up to the first one. This is on page 6. And I'm going to copy the prompt. You can see we've kind of numbered this in sections. We're asking it here to generate high impact subject line. I like to ask it to produce at least 3 as we're going through this, so we can kind of have some more ideas. Again, it's just a good idea generator. Doesn't mean you're going to use it right out of the box, nor should you necessarily, but having more ideas in front of us is always helpful. And then it's going to generate the email body. We're following a very specific sequence here. We want the value in this hook right away, or they're going to quit reading. You know how it is in your inbox. You're going fast. You read a couple lines, you're like, delete. But if something sucks you in, you'll find yourself, oh my gosh, how much time have I spent reading through this thing, right? It happens. And then engage, then promote. And we're promoting in a way that's, feeling natural, avoiding aggressive sales language, we've told it, a micro commitment, taking action feel effortless. We're making sure, and then we're asking it to actually double check our audience targeting at the end. So that's what we've done. All right, what did we get? It gave me 3 different types of subject lines. Curiosity driven, is this Moab's most thrilling adventure? Find out. I am kind of curious. Urgency based, only a few spots left for spring's ultimate adventure. That's good. Personalized, where we're plugging in their first name. Um, this is a bit generic for me. Your next adventure awaits in Moab. I could ask it to improve that. I don't think I'd use it. The next one is, okay, so it chose, is this Moab's most thrilling adventure? Like this. You're gripping the edge of your seat, heart pounding as your Hummer scales. Very cool. This is no ordinary tour. It's Moab's legendary off-road adventure, the Slick Rock Safari Hummer Tour. Why it's a must-do. We've got a review in there that it pulled from our data. I love that. It makes it so easy. I would have had to go out and do that. Check out our adventure gallery before you book. That's cool. So like check out the photo gallery. People love to see photos. And keep in mind, this is one that I would likely be dressing up, like Nikki mentioned before. This would be, beautiful header potentially, some images. That's how our newsletters generally are, but they could also be this simple as what you see on the screen here. And then it tells us kind of why this works. So that's great. And if you want to feature a different activity, you could utilize this and actually plug in anything that you're trying to feature, right? Often we look at where do we need the focus? What's happening? Where are we struggling in terms of sales? I'm going to plug that in and utilize this framework to develop an email with the foundation of my ideal customer profile and everything else and the values, and I'm going to craft it. Okay. I might do some, I'm just going to do this while we're in this email and we're going to jump to the next one. But sometimes I like to remind it about our project files and say, is there anything from the elements of value, uploaded document or our ideal customer profile document that would make this email, I'll say actually resonate more with our ideal customer. So I'm going to kind of force it to utilize these a little bit. Okay, these are good things. It's kind of recalling here. Bucket list mentality, adventure and relaxation pairing. Our audience values a one-stop shop experience that removes stress and saves time. Reviews show that family bonding, bragging rights, badge value, that came from our value exercise, right, that we went through, feeling accomplished. Okay, and it incorporated some of these things into the bullet list, which I think is a little bit stronger than what we had last time. So again, don't always just take the first result at face value, kind of push it to utilize all the foundation and resources we've provided, and I think it improves the results. Okay, I like it. Let's move on to newsletter framework number 2. We're going to take this prompt. We'll talk through this one a little bit. The way it chose to do this last email is actually we're gonna end up with something somewhat similar here, but I'm starting a new chat for this one again because I might really dive into lots of refinements and I don't want to push the window too much for this individual thread. She was terrified at first, then this happened. That's pretty funny. From never again to best day ever. So these are a little bit different, right? And they're kind of driven by this human experience, which we relate to. I'd be curious about maybe from never again to best day ever, and see what this person's talking about. And that's the one it chose. And so this is from Greg from our Google reviews file. My wife is very delicate and not really an off-road person like me, but she loved it too. Although the client, blah, 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 blah. And then it related that. this is kind of a different style of email, maybe than what you're used to, but if we can utilize this, people resonate with these human experiences, you know, and you may have a review. I may know of one that I'm like, oh, there's an even better one than that, and I didn't choose it. And I can, again, it's generating ideas. I can go back and grab that and utilize that to help people. But this one is very real for us. We have, you know, sort of this, especially, you know, husband and wife combinations. Someone has this relationship where their partner is not at exactly the same level of comfort with some of the more thrilling type experiences, whether that's, you know, higher levels of whitewater rafting or whatever it might be. And so that becomes a real hesitation. So I like that it's utilizing that. Okay, again, we could refine, and I would take this a step further and dig in a little bit deeper. But we'll stop there just so you can see an example of each one of these. Let's go to our listicle. So this one here, as I said before, I think pairs really well. I don't need the dictionary. This one pairs really well with our blog session that we did last time, because you're going to have some really fantastic listicle style blog posts. And you can very easily take one of those and tease out, you know, the first couple in a countdown and say, read more here. Super natural, and people love that. Our brains want to complete the countdown, right? And so we will very, very often get high click-through rates on something like that, just because we're geared to finish the list. So I'm not going to put anything else in it and do this, but there is a spot up here where I would suggest, if you have one in mind, you're like, I am proud of this post. It is really great. Come back, use this, but stick your actual right here where it says insert activity blog title. It's probably just going to make one up for me. Plug it in here and utilize it. And then you got something that's, hey, I've already got this page built. Let me maximize it with emails. There are some operators that treat this as their entire email strategy, which is a really great way to go. They will build posts weekly or every other week or even monthly, and they will pair it with a teaser email that goes out, and that is their newsletter. And they're just driving people back into this fresh content every single time. Really easy to do, and a nice pairing of the work you've done in the blog with the email. You don't have to keep coming up with new ideas. You can say, you know, here it is, tease the blog, link to the blog, and a couple of related trips. And you can do it every time over and over. And people love it. And you're always providing that value to them because you're always writing new posts. So this one is what most travelers miss in Moab. It's kind of similar to that other one. Skip the crowds, capture the magic. Again, I didn't provide it a lot of detail, but if we had gone in and related it to one of our blog titles, I think I would have gotten better results. And in fact, well, we won't do it here, but try it on your own, and you'll see that the results are far better. So hopefully that one helps with your listicles, or really any blog topic you could do it with. It doesn't have to be a listicle. All right, let's jump into our last segment here of email types. So these, I think, are often overlooked, as I mentioned before. We often come into our marketing framework, we think, okay, newsletters. I think that most companies are probably doing something like that. They've got their monthly newsletter, or perhaps more frequent than that. And that may be it. Maybe we've stepped it up and we have a lead magnet and some nurturing emails set up. Hopefully you do. But then sometimes we miss this third one, and I think it can be really powerful, which is looking at segments of your list and re-engaging them in some fashion. Right? Not just you're taking your whole email list and just, blasting out the same email to all of them. These ones are more effective when they're a little more personal. they feel like they're written from someone in your company, and you're targeting a very specific segment of the list. So what are some examples of this? I've got a few different frameworks on here for you. The first one is past traveler outreach. So this could be someone who did a trip with you in the last 3 years, let's say, had that experience, or 5, or however far back you want to go, and they are not currently booked for anything in the future. Okay? Great audience to say, would they like to come back and do this again or do something else different if you have it? So one thing that we like to do is take people who experience a day trip with us and introduce them to the idea of an overnight trip. So I can actually take this, and I'm going to do it in this one. We're going to come up here and we'll paste this in. And I'm going to say introduce, I'm going to do our Desolation Canyon 5-day expedition. I'm just going to say adventure centers, Desolation Canyon 5-day as a natural next adventure, explaining why most travelers who loved, and then I'll do our Colorado River full day trip. And I might actually include the half-day people when I actually build the list with this as well, and just craft it so that it just describes that as a single experience. Okay. Oop, I gotta put in the previous one up here. Went on our Colorado River full day trip last year. Okay, so I've replaced the 3 substitutions here, and I'm gonna have it put something together. So you'll notice here that this sound, it should sound like a personal follow-up, not a mass email. Use light storytelling to build excitement. Mention any early booking perks, yada yada, all that. Which you might decide to remove from the prompt if you don't want to do that. They're just there as ideas for you. This might be a little poetic for what someone would actually write. So I'd probably end up coaxing it to change this a little bit, remove a little bit of the salesy fluff, whether maybe the poetic fluff with it. It's fun. I like the imagery, but I just don't think it would be something someone would just sit down and. I want this to feel like someone in our office just sat down and quickly shot off an email to Tom, and said, "Hey, Tom, you did this last year. I was thinking about you. Would you be interested in doing this next year?" And it might be that short. So this, for me, does not feel like, when it gets too long like this, I'm like, nobody's going to sit down and just fire that email off to Tom. So let's try to redirect it. Let's say, let's try something much shorter. It feels like person on our reservations team sat down and typed out personal email to the recipient. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. See what we come up with here. So these are good examples of just taking what you get, and again, I like this. I was looking through past trips. I saw you did the Colorado full day trip last year. I hope it was an awesome experience. If you're thinking about your next adventure, I want to share one that a lot of past guests like you have loved. I like this. I like it. That's really, really good. And I think somebody might actually write that, and I might just tweak it a little bit. I might even ask the person whose name I'm going to put at the bottom of it to take a look at it and see if they might say anything differently in this. So it's really their language. But that could be very effective, right? Taking something like that and reaching out to one of our past travelers. All right, let's move into the next one. This one is a group organizer outreach. Now, not everyone may do this. For us, group organizers produce a lot of business. If it's not a segment of your business that you're actively pursuing right now, but could, I suggest it. There are some, for RESMARK users, there are some really cool tools inside the system that allow you to take any departure and hand it to a group organizer with a direct private booking link they can share with their group. No one else can access it except for their group if they have the link, and so that makes that really easy to do. And we love doing a lot of that. So I'm going to, I haven't done a whole lot in here. This is pretty short, so I'm just going to stay in the same thread here. That's okay to do sometimes if you're just crafting out some different ideas. Okay, I don't have any substitutions in here. I kind of want this to feel, it might inherit that last suggestion a little bit here and make it feel like somebody, yeah, that's what it's going to do. So I like that. Sometimes you find that if you've already sort of coaxed it in a certain direction and you like where it's going, building something on top of that will inherit kind of your previous suggestions a little bit. You know, this sounds like what someone might say. I just wanted to reach out and say thank you for organizing your last trip with us. Putting a group together takes effort, and it's clear you're the kind of leader who makes adventure happen. We loved having your crew out on the river. Hope it was a trip to remember. And then it goes into making a suggestion here for what they might do next. As a returning group organizer, we'd love to make it even easier for you. It plugs some of those things in that we had said, offer an easy next step, feature exclusive perks, introduce a new trip they might love. It did all of that. So love that. The next one is urgency-based outreach. So this might be something where you're trying to fill the last spots on one of your tours. You had a big cancellation. We just had this happen to us. Had a big cancellation and had some very last minute seats. We had to do a bunch of this kind of stuff where we reached out to our list and said, hey, opportunity. So let's try this. We'll plug it in here. Again, I'm going to do it in the same thread because I like where this is going with it feeling a little more personal like this. And I don't know, let's pick one of our tours. We'll pick our Cataract Canyon trip, which is true. We'll call it our express trip because that one is almost sold out. So we'll plug this in and see what we get here. Okay, it's really taking this personal approach again. I was looking through upcoming trips and thought of you since you've been on one of our Colorado River adventures before. I wanted to give you a quick heads up. Now, here's one thing that maybe I don't want it to do, right? And recognize that what's happening here. Because I started with that initial prompt to say, you did this and I'm suggesting this, it's kind of inheriting some of that in the thread, which is either a reason to start a new one, so you don't mix that together, or if you want to do that, then obviously, you know, B, continue within the same vein. So love this. I could go in and tweak just a few things there, and I've got a pretty decent message. Okay, one more we'll hit here, and then we'll wrap up with any questions. This last one is re-engagement for leads who never booked, and I like this one because we all have a lot of these, right? These are people who at some point or another expressed interest, gave you their email address, especially if you're doing some kind of lead magnet, and they just never booked. Sometimes we run our sequence like we talked about at the beginning of the session today, and nothing happens, and then they just go into newsletters, which is okay. It kind of keeps them semi-warm, but we don't necessarily reach out on this personal level saying, hey, it's been, you know, and I could do this in segments of time even. Last year, you had reached out. Earlier this year, you had reached out. You know, I could actually segment by time and make these even more effective. And the more you can kind of segment down to a tighter and tighter audience, the more effective this becomes. Okay, and I didn't give it any time frame like that, so it's fairly generic on this one. I saw you had checked out some of our trips, wanted to reach out to you. You know, I think putting a time frame with it, you know, about this time last year you did this. We actually put, to automate some of this too, we will put a 365-day follow-up in our lead sequence. And we do that because you find if you think about your own personal behavior, usually when you're thinking about a spring break trip or a summer trip or whatever it might be, you kind of start thinking about it about the same time every year, right? And so there's a high likelihood that if you didn't do it this year, you might do it next year, and your planning time frame is probably going to be pretty close to what it was this year. So following up a year later to say, hey, Nikki, about this time last year, you were considering this. I noticed you didn't do it. Can we help you put it on the calendar this year? That's a really great thing to have in place. And maybe a couple more follow-ups right around that, so you have a little flurry of activity kind of in that window when you think they might be planning. So these are meant for more like the one-off, grab a segment, reach out to them, do some effective marketing that way. But putting some of that into your sequences can be really powerful as well. So there you have it. We've gone through all of these prompts. You have access to the 12 pages here. We didn't hit every single one of them in there, but hopefully as we've worked through some of these, you're seeing how to utilize this, how easy it can be to generate ideas for emails and really effective content using the foundation that we've created here. So with that, I'm going to pause for just a second. We have just a couple of minutes. Nikki, is there anything else that's come up that we want to cover before we close?
Yeah, quick question. I wanted to bring up two things real quick. And I wrote it in the comments. One thing I do personally, just because it's not in my tone of voice, is I always remove the M dashes and ellipsis. Is that how you say it? The three dots. So that it doesn't look as AI like when you are sending those emails. So if it's not in your like writing tone, don't, you could ask ChatGPT to remove those things and use a different punctuation mark. And then also, like if you wanted to remove those emojis, you just say, don't remove the emojis. And the other thing I wanted to mention is make sure you are split testing, and when you do split test, most CRM, so wherever you're sending these emails out of, it might have a place where you can A/B test the emails. You do only want to test one variable. So you don't want to change the whole email up. Make sure you're only changing that subject line or a part of that subject line. Maybe it has an emoji on a part A, email A, and not an emoji on email B. And then the email stays the same. That's how you know what's going to work. Awesome, guys. I do have a question. Steve, feel free to unmute and ask that question because I wasn't understanding exactly what you were asking. If you're still here, I'd love to hear it. My microphone doesn't work. Okay, Steve, sorry about that. Feel free to re-ask it and maybe I'll be able to pick up what you're throwing down, or maybe Brandon will. Steve says,
Oh,
okay.
go ahead.
Yes, he's okay. So I'm not exactly understanding this. So when we were talking, so the top, so the 10 tips e-zine, I'm not sure what that is. The e-zine, they are subscribing to will include each of the second set of 10 pieces of info on our particular business. Is that right? The first part of, oh, go ahead.
No, I can see what he's talking about here.
Okay.
So you could do, if you're combining these together, I don't think there's necessarily a set rule, right? The insider's guide it could have some of the things that you're introducing there, but the emails could also be in addition to, or a little more depth on. Like one thing that this concept of having an e-zine or an insider's guide or a PDF or whatever it might be that you're utilizing for this thing. And there may be more effective ways to do this than a PDF. I think back in the day, before mobile was so prevalent, this was a great way to go, but it is harder to view PDFs on a phone now. So think about that in terms of what you're delivering. But having the content, be sort of a little bit of a teaser in the guide, and the emails dig a little deeper and give you a link to the full resource on the site is a great way to go. Having them be a little bit different than each other, I think is fine too. It's kind of whatever you want to do, I guess, with that. And I will say too, I mean, if you've seen some things here, obviously we talked about, what we have in RESMARK. If you're not utilizing a system or don't have those capabilities available to you and you're interested in it, you can visit RESMARK Systems, learn more about that, and you can always schedule a demo. And our team would be happy to walk you through how some of those things work within the system. And it's been really amazing for our business. That has really helped it to grow, and a big portion of that is all of that automation that we talked about. So with that, let me just put up here where we're headed next. So we've now completed our 4th session here. We've talked about our ideal customer goldmine. We built that foundation. We did copywriting for higher conversions on our website. We did the blog and content strategy. We covered email marketing today. Our last session next week will be about AI-powered ads and campaigns. So in terms of where these fit into the customer journey, we're talking about both the awareness phase. We're going to look at that, like how do we get ads out there, both that are just textual, sort of like our paid advertising in Google, for example. How do we make those effective? Because I think we're probably all doing that. And then also kind of in that nurturing phase, when we lose someone, they abandon the site, and we're doing remarketing. Or we're doing remarketing even to people who have been on our tours. We'll look at all of those different segments and figure out, okay, whether it's a display ad, whether it's a text-based ad, or I'll even show you some examples of utilizing this for outdoor signage and things like that we've plugged it into, that just to come up with something that truly resonates with our audience. So stay tuned for next week. We're excited to have everybody with us so far along in all of these sessions. Hope you're getting great value out of it, and we'll wrap it up with our final session next time.